So, welcome to another Homeschool Resource Finder parent information session. I am joined by Alex Cork today from Crimson Global Academy, and we're going to go through all of the behind the scenes of CGA and how they can help you on your homeschool journey, whether that may be in a full-time capacity, a part-time load, or even just helping out in one subject area. Thank you for joining us, Alex.
Thanks so much, Kylie. It's good to be here.
You're welcome. So let's just jump straight in. I want to know about CGA because prior to chatting to you, I'd never heard of Crimson Global Academy. So
Hmm.
where did they start? How long they've been going for, and why, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks again for having us. I think the reason we reached out to the Homeschool Resource Finder as a group as well, is that we work with a lot of homeschool families who, like you, had never heard of like a private online school or like in this case, CGA before. In the Australian and New Zealand market, this kind of service is very new. Whereas like if you go to the US, online schools are very popular, and a lot of homeschoolers use an online school as either their part-time or main, full-time school. But in Australia, I think homeschooling is still, quite traditional and parent-led. In this case, CGA was so we're a registered school in New Zealand. We're a registered school in the US. We're not yet an Australian registered school. I say yet, we're going through that process at the moment. But at the moment, families use us as part of their homeschool plan or their full homeschooling plan when they're applying in various states. We typically have students apply full time to study with us, basically covering all their academics in New South Wales, Queensland, the ACT, South Australia, Western Australia, and Northern Territory and Tasmania. In Victoria at the moment, we are not allowed to have students study full time with us because they basically, came down with the parent. The education must be parent led, and they saw CGA as not necessarily doing that. So I think for us, like we cover a lot of the subjects that parents might not feel comfortable with. We have, international qualifications, so helping students to apply to top universities in Australia or overseas. So like fully qualified ATAR equivalent type qualifications. We enroll by ability rather than age across all subjects. So really allowing us to differentiate learning. And we have some very flexible learning formats. So we have group classes, live group classes. We have live one-to-one private classes. And we also have for our US students, like our US diploma students, a recorded format as well. But yeah, it's quite a unique school in the space. There's no real school doing what we do at the moment. And I think we tend to see a lot of like new homeschool families or homeschool families who have long-term, but primary school students who are now going into high school, and parents are like, we really enjoy homeschooling, but we don't see a pathway to like, top university admissions, or we don't feel comfortable teaching high school chemistry and these types of things. Or we just want, a social outlet or support network built around our homeschool plan. Where are we likely to get that from? And that's when they come to us. So yeah, touched on a fair few different topics there, but I hope that gives you a bit of an overview.
No, covered all bases there, really. And I like that you have that freedom, or the families have that flexibility to be able to tap into either the full spectrum or just bits and pieces. So you
Yeah, yeah.
mentioned, for example, chemistry. Let's jump on that because that's what you mentioned. So I could effectively enroll my child simply in your science program and nothing else.
Yep. So yeah, we do a lot of single subject enrollments, and they can basically the good thing about a single subject enrollment is they can still join all our extracurricular clubs. They can still get involved in our community. They can still come to our social days and meetups and all these types of things, and just be enrolled in a single subject. So there's no need for a student to be, it's not full time or nothing. There is that kind of part time main school, which is very popular.
Right.
And like I think I've got to, we'll show some examples in a little bit of students who have done that, and typically they are families who have been, long-term homeschool families who are then looking at university pathways and, are doing a couple of subjects with us to meet those university requirements.
Right. So you offer not just the online subjects, you do offer the full kind of school networking experience.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. I often say like we're a private school without a physical campus.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way I think to understand it. I think a lot of people just say, "Oh, is it, just a Zoom class that my child gets emailed once in a while?" Like, no, that's I think that, a lot of people relate to their COVID learning experience as their only online learning experience. I think like a purpose-built online school is very different. So, we have university counselors, special education needs specialists. We have all these community events, extracurricular clubs, all these different things that a family would usually associate with a private school, and they can get all that at CGA.
Perfect. All right, let's take a step back and let's look at the full offering. If I was going to enroll my child in a full year, so you mentioned that while CGA is a registered school in other countries, it currently isn't in Australia, and
Yep.
you would have to register in every state, which fun
Bit of a
process for
headache,
you.
but we're starting with New South Wales at the moment. Yep.
Perfect. So, as a homeschooling family where I need to take the responsibility as the parent and submit plans and write
Hmm.
reports and potentially have an appointed person come and
Hmm.
witness the work that I'm doing, how does CGA work in with that and how would you help me as the parent?
Yeah, so I can actually show you a document that we send to families, which might shed a little bit of light on this. So we created this, the Australian Homeschooling Guide, obviously specific to CGA. But a lot of the questions and answers, the study patterns and these types of things, how we meet the requirements for year 11 and 12, New South Wales homeschooling requirements. So we kind of teach people how to apply if they haven't gone through that process before, how the CGA subjects meet up with the, NESA requirements or Queensland requirements, etc. So we do have all that information here. And then we kind of say like, this is the section 4 requirements. What question has been asked? What information they can actually refer to as a result of being in CGA. And we do stress to parents that even though you're enrolled in CGA and even though they're being taught by teachers, it doesn't mean you can completely disregard your responsibility as a homeschool parent, that you still are very much in control of, or you should have a really solid level of understanding of what your child is doing, how they're being assessed, where they're at in their journey, what curriculum are they studying, all these bits and pieces. So we do make sure parents are very aware of what their child is doing, and they can actually access all of this information through our parent portal as well. So if they want to see samples of work, or if the AP, for example, wants to see your education plan and how that relates to the NESA outcomes, for example, you can actually demonstrate all of that with the information that we send. So that's one of the Australian homeschooling guides, and then we also create templates for students based on the subjects that they're enrolled in. So, say for instance, a Year 10 student doing stage 5. Then how are the CGA subjects meeting those homeschool requirements here as well? And then we do provide some in red here, some opportunities for families to add their own, and if, for example, like Indigenous history, we don't cover in huge fashion at CGA because we are an international school. We have students from 55 countries, so we don't obviously teach the Australian specific curriculum, but we do provide some information as how to families to meet those requirements, the HSIE. And then even like, we do say use programs like UCA, IXL, Khan Academy, these types of things to help supplement potentially in areas that CGA might not cover. As I said, being an international school, we don't specifically cover the Australian curriculum, but it's quite easy for a family to meet homeschool requirements like, maths, science, English, social science. Like we cover the vast majority of the outcomes, and then it might just be a couple of bits and pieces that need to be added in.
Perfect. Yeah. It sounds like a good balance between, yes, obviously homeschooling, where the parent needs to have a good understanding of what the child's doing, yet CGA is taking on the bulk of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's so true. Like, I could imagine being a homeschool parent for the first time, and often we do meet first-time homeschool families. Like they have had to withdraw their child either due to bullying, or their family is traveling, or medical issues. Their child's got medical issues, and they've had to withdraw their child from school. They're first-time homeschoolers, and it's intimidating when your child's in like year 8 or 9, or the kind of particularly in the high school years, to start that process from the get-go. It's really difficult, and really, especially when the students are, we have high ambitions, high goals, and the parents are like panicking because they're like, oh, my kid's really academic, and they want to work with a teacher. I don't know high school maths, and they feel like very intimidated by the expectation that they would become their child's teacher. And so they're essentially using us as like a partner through their homeschooling is very important, I think, for these families. It kind of gets them out of a tight spot a lot of the time,
Mm.
where they know their child's getting a really high level quality of education, getting engagement in class, having really great teachers and mentors that they're learning from. But they still feel very connected to their child's education through like the homeschool planning side of things.
Yeah, perfect. So what you showed there was New South Wales. Do you have students in other states?
Yeah. So Queensland, South Australia, I'd say predominantly our students are based in New South Wales and Queensland. We have a smallish contingent here in Victoria. As I mentioned, they can't be full-time enrolled in Victoria at the moment.
Yep.
So some part-time students are still in Victoria very much. And then we've got a couple of kids in WA and South Australia. We'd love to see a few more in Tassie. We've got one now in Tassie and two in Northern Territory. But we have about 1,700 students from all around the world. So from 55 countries, 1,700 students. And I think like a lot of the families, realize that this is a global school, global community. And so, traveling and these types of things can be a really exciting part of being a CGA where students will plan their holidays around meeting up with their friends and these types of things. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I always say like, CGA doesn't just teach, like a lot of schools, they kind of claim to be teaching global citizens. And I think like CGA actually does that because kids are learning about time zones and cultures and languages and everything else
Yeah.
just from the people in their classes, which is
Yeah,
exciting.
perfect. Perfect. Also briefly touching on university, as you mentioned, you don't actually teach the Australian curriculum, given that you're an international school.
Mhm.
So how do students who are with CGA in their senior high school years, can you step me through the process of how they are actually getting into university here in Australia then?
Yeah, well, it's actually fairly straightforward because the curriculum, I'll just share my screen again. The curriculum we teach is this one here. So this is just like a UNSW Bachelor's of Engineering page. So you'll see like the ATAR requirements, the IB requirements, which are obviously the two most common curriculum here in Australia, and then the A levels, which is what probably 95% of our students in Australia take. The
Mhm.
other 5% being US diploma students, which also is accepted by Australian universities. So a lot of the like I think one of the biggest misconceptions we often see is parents who think that they need an ATAR to apply to university. That's completely wrong. The universities accept a huge range of curriculum options. Like if you go to, Monash University or UCIT or whatever, and you say, what curriculum do you accept? They will give you a list of like over 100 different countries that they accept curriculum options from. The A levels is very familiar to Australian universities. In fact, you might see PLC, Presbyterian Ladies College in Sydney, is now a A-level school as well. And I think like this year is the first year that ACTAC, which is the Australian Tertiary Admission Centre, they're actually introducing a national framework for the A levels. So kind of standardizing it across all universities. At the moment, each university has slightly different interpretations, but here's actually a pretty solid one. UWA, for example, if a student, one of the major advantages with the A levels is probably suits students who are a little bit more specialized in their areas of knowledge, kind of like know what subjects they really enjoy. But if students score three, so you only need to do three subjects in the A levels to graduate. Most of our students at CGA do four, just for that little bit more breadth in their knowledge. But even with three A stars, and an A star is awarded to the top 10% of scorers in that exam, our scores are 99.95.
Right.
And I checked in with ChatGPT, the be all and end all of knowledge these days, and I said, if given the choice, which one is easier to score a high ATAR with? And ChatGPT said, yeah, the A levels is easier to score a high ATAR with, just given the university's conversion is very solid with the from A levels to ATAR.
Okay. Fair enough.
But
And in
the
terms,
process is exactly the same though. Exam, they submit to their UAC or VTAC or
right,
wherever
that
they're
was my
applying
question.
to, and essentially like the process is exactly the same as if they were an IB student or an ATAR student. Nothing changes in that regard. It's just a different curriculum.
Perfect. And of course, CGA offer teachers that are versed in this and will help
Oh
their
yeah.
students do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. I would say that's probably one of the major advantages of CGA is that we have more teacher applications than teaching spots. That's a very rare thing in today's schooling system.
Yeah.
We've been able to be very picky with who we hire for our teaching roles. We're looking for teachers who have, high level of experience, high level of engagement, teacher passion, subject expertise, and they teach in really small group classes as well. So our average group size is around 8 to 12 students. We
Mhm.
cap all our classes at 15. And they're working with real subject experts. And what the teachers like about teaching at CGA is that they don't have any other distractions. They're there to teach. They're not, doing lunchtime duty or after school sport or detentions or whatnot. They're just there to teach really high quality classes.
Yep.
All of our classes are recorded as well. So they can watch the live class. Students can go back, watch the recording if they want as well. Actually, ran our numbers through ChatGPT again, like our recent exam results. And I said, like, how do these exam results, A-level wise, stack up against some ATAR results? And basically did some calculations and said roughly the results of CGA students is somewhat on par with top grammar schools in Australia. So yeah, fair, really solid results. And we're not selective in any way as to who we enroll. We obviously want to make sure they're a good fit for CGA, that they're motivated and they're interested to learn and can manage the online format. But we're not, doing any entrance exams, kind of you're in or you're out type of thing. We just you're in. Let's just make sure you're in at the right level for you as a student, and then on they go to hopefully complete their exams at a great level.
And the right level for them, can that be different levels for different subjects?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, for example, one of our school captains from last year, at one point, he was learning across three different year groups. So I think he was, really strong in his maths. He was a bit behind in his English, but he was pretty much at grade level for most of his subjects. And I just enrolled another student from New Zealand, actually, who's a gifted kid. And we see quite a few gifted kids through homeschooling because they are a bit bored and not really interested in general school. But for example, this kid, very strong in maths and science, so he's going to be enrolling 2 years ahead in maths and science, and everything else he's going to be at his grade level for in English and social sciences and these types of things. So yeah, we do differentiate across all subjects.
Yeah. How does the nitty-gritty work, obviously being an international school, in terms of attending live classes and time zones?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can show you what our calendar looks like. If that helps. This is our internal.
Just
So when
thinking,
I'm
how
logging,
do every student in every country get on?
yeah, that's right. That's right. So this is like our timetable at the moment for a student based in Auckland, for example. But if we switch that to Sydney, then obviously all the times change there. So we can have a look at this is what like a year 9 student's timetable could look like, or this is what the available streams are anyway. This is the number of students in each class
Mhm.
and the available seats that they have in each class as well. So we just opened this social science class, for example, just because we get a lot of late enrollments, a lot of students who start term 1 at their school and through bullying or whatever it might be, usually drop out and look for alternatives. So we do have to open some classes a little bit late.
Yep.
But yeah, this is like a timetable for a student who is standard year 9 in Australia or in Sydney. But for example, I wouldn't get them to join the 6:45 class. That's pretty much all Kiwis in this
Yeah.
6:45 class. There's 8:45 there. So we'd get the students to join classes that suits their school day. You can see we take classes Monday to Thursday at the moment. We leave Friday free to be focused on extracurriculars, homework catch up. If a student has an interest outside of school, they can focus on that as well. But if the student is full time, they're doing 20 hours of class with us a week, plus homework. And yeah, the extracurriculars and all those other elements of the school are optional. Nothing is mandatory at CGA. So we do see a lot of like pre-professional students or students who have a very strong interest in a external extracurricular where they basically don't want to have mandatory sport or they don't want to have long days, for example. And I'll try and make sure that our timetable really works for them so they can go off and do their sport or do their music or whatever it is they're doing.
So does the timetable can the kids sort of jump in and out whenever they choose, or do you get them to choose a timetable at the beginning of each term and sort of stick to
Yep.
that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we get them to choose the timetable for the year.
Yeah.
And as much as possible, we get students to stick with that timetable. If the teacher recommends that a student, move up or down, we usually make that decision in the first 2 weeks of the school year,
Hmm.
and then basically have them in that group class for the entire year. So the timetable doesn't change. We sometimes families are like, oh, we can do a Monday, but we can't do a Thursday. How's that going to work? In which case, we can seek approval from the school and say, can the student catch up with the recording once a week? Or if it's a senior year level, kind of year 10 or above, we generally want students to attend all of their live classes because that's a serious academic year. If
Yeah.
it's early on and the student is academic already and is doing well already, we might be okay with them doing one recording a week, as long as they are actually watching it and staying on top of their work.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, okay. You've got some other slides to give us a little bit of
Yeah,
into particular students. Let's have a look at those.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll just kind of go through, I guess, a little bit of a general gist of CGA here, if that's okay. Um, yeah, so I'll get into the student examples in a sec, but if families are at all interested, we are basically licensed to teach Pearson Excel A levels and Cambridge Assessment A levels, as well as the AP College Board exams. Families may know what that is. It's a US-based curriculum. We're WASC accredited in the US and Ministry of Education approved in New Zealand. And we came third in the World's Best School Prize for Innovation last in 2024. Yeah.
Well done.
So that was exciting to see. And then top 50 World's Ed Tech Companies of 2024 as well for Time Magazine. So we have all these bits and pieces, houses and competitions, teacher interviews, department heads and deans, all these types of things. We even have an annual camp, overseas tours, which is really exciting. We had a tour to Vietnam recently, which was great. We had an annual camp in Nelson in New Zealand recently, which is really fun. So it's great to see all our students getting together. And then these main key differences from what students would typically experience at a school and probably why they join CGA a lot of the time is that ability rather than age-based learning, the opportunity to enroll full-time or part-time, the small group or one-to-one classes, and then that focus on flexibility. And our teaching staff. So this is our amazing principal, Mark, our deputy principal, Ronan, and then some of our other teachers. So a lot of our teachers are from New Zealand or Australia. So for example, Emily's based in Melbourne, Mr. Carlsberg's based in New Zealand, Cheryl Husband is based in New Zealand as well. A couple of our teachers are based in Sydney. So yeah, really great teaching staff. And this is why homeschool families typically join, for the core subjects like maths, English, and science. They want to have, a bit more structure of their day or something like at least an hour a day where, your kid's going to be learning with, like-minded peers with a great teacher, and you as a parent might take a bit of a break during that time, get your own things done potentially, which is great. That uni preparation side, the university counselling, that community aspect as well, and that really easy structure that we provide for families. And this is what our group classes look like. We use a lot of, obviously this is fast forwarded a little bit, so but you can see like we use a lot of really interactive technology and equipment and apps and all kinds of different things in our classes to make sure students are really making the most of the online format. It's actually a really interesting format to learn. I think a lot of families, Kylie, say, oh, I want an in-person teacher, like when they're looking for tutors and these types of things. I really want an in-person one. And I think like online done right is actually really useful because like our teachers have access to all the amazing teaching resources out there on the internet. And we got some great licenses to, science simulators and all these types of things that were created and during COVID actually, to facilitate the online learning at schools. And they've come such a long way, and they really provide a really, fantastic learning environment. But here's an example of a student from Melbourne that I enrolled in 2022, Brandon, and his younger brother's now with us as well. But essentially, he started in year 10, he enrolled in a single subject. Year 11 and 12, he has been using us to meet his maths and English requirements. He's a rower as well, and he is basically he has applied to and successfully applied to US college for a rolling scholarship. And in that particular college, they only required maths and English and the SAT. So yeah, like a part-time main school student for the last couple of years.
So you would help him sit the SATs?
We can do SAT tutoring, yeah. So
Right.
SAT tutoring is a big part. Like Crimson Education is the parent company of CGA, and
Mhm.
they've been supporting students to apply to US, UK universities for the last 10 years. So
Okay.
yeah, we can do SAT tutoring for sure. And this is a newly enrolled family that arrived from New Zealand, and basically, like in their situation, they weren't able to get a spot at the local school that they wanted to get a spot at. They were wanting to figure out like the adjustment period from New Zealand curriculum to Australian curriculum, all these types of things. And they found us and they're like, oh, you guys seem to know what you're doing. You're probably a better fit for us at this point in time. So I'd be interested to see if this family continues into next year because I know that a lot of families use us as like a plan B option of like we don't intend to be a long-term homeschool family, but we definitely want to do homeschooling now. It suits us now. And so their younger child, Hafsa, is in doing English, math, and science with us. And the older boy, who is a little bit more skeptical, he's just enrolled in English for now, but he's just re-enrolled again for next term as well. So he's doing a term-by-term enrollment, and it's working out for them.
Yeah.
Um, and the remainder of their program is using Yuka essentially, which is something that I've been working with the family on. And this is their timetable for a year seven student doing English and maths, for example. So every day, 1:30 to 2:30, the students joining a maths and English group class. And this is like a year four student doing private classes. So for our primary age students, we teach from 7 years old up until 18. But essentially for our primary age students, we only offer private classes and a group enrichment class, but it's not like a mandatory part of CGA. That's more the one-to-one where they do their learning. And
Okay.
that generally is like half hour, half hour, half hour, half hour, half hour, half hour. So you're doing 3 hours a week total plus homework. But they're still learning at a really fast pace as compared to a school, which
Yeah.
is like a lot of behavior management and these types of things. A student wouldn't really worry
That
about
the
that.
reason why in primary you tend to do the one-on-one?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like we've done some group. As I said, we're doing group enrichment classes now, but it's a little bit looser. It's led by one of our really fantastic teachers, Diego, and he's doing a really great job with the enrichment classes. It's kind of a cross age that we teach that group class. But we feel like the most effective way to teach primary kids is one-to-one,
Hmm.
just because some students probably don't have the attention span to really survive in a group class for an hour. So the half-hour sessions for primary students is very popular.
Yeah.
And basically they book in with their teacher. It's the same teacher each week. Usually they'll have like a subject specialist. So they might have a maths teacher and a different English teacher, for example. But even with an hour a week, they're covering more content. This is like the general kind of experience of our students. They're learning more at a faster pace than what they were at a physical school.
Right.
Just because physical school is like, as I said, a lot of behavior management and a lot of like, it's a bit slow going. So we teach 40-hour curriculum for our primary students to cover a full year's worth of work in any subject.
Okay. And what
So
sort
an
of
hour a week.
homework load would go along with that particular timetable that you
So
do?
for about an hour of class a week, they're doing about an hour of homework. So they might have half hour of class, half hour of homework, half hour of class, half hour of homework.
Right. Okay.
And this is our extracurricular clubs that we have at CGA as well. So really diverse. And a lot of these classes, actually, I love this example, the photography club, because that was started by a student of mine who kind of joined after experiencing school refusal. And she said, "Oh, look, she was really done with school. She was like ready to leave. She was 14, 15 at the time she joined. She was ready to go. And the mum was like, no, we really want you to finish schooling." And so they joined CGA and she enrolled for 1 year and she actually really enjoyed it. And then she started the photography club and she was like one of our student leaders the following year. And she ended up just graduating at the end of last year. And she's now attending a university here in Melbourne. The parents never thought that that was going to happen. But I
Wow.
often say, like, some parents say, oh, online school, like, what about the social side or these types of things? And I think a lot of homeschool families get it because they know that there's so many different ways for a student to socialize other than a physical school setting.
Mm.
The homeschool community in itself is like amazing homeschool community, and like a lot of our students are involved in CGA as the homeschool community, as well as their local one as well, local homeschool community.
Yeah.
But it's just getting away from like the often toxic environment that a school can have. Like a lot of our late enrollments are, students who are socially finding school very difficult and join us. And she was a great example of a student who like went from school refuser to a school a school leader. And her photography club was her baby, and she started that, and it was a really actually became one of our biggest clubs at CGA.
What a wonderful story they are.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So she was great. Milan, her name is.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, as I said, like the full-time or part-time enrollment are some options there too. So yeah, very, very interesting school to be at, that's for sure. Working with families from all around the world on these types of very interesting student cases.
I know, as you said, in the US, this has been a thing for a long time. And
Hmm.
I've been homeschooling for a long time, so I've been aware of them. But here in Australia, it's very foreign. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it will grow. Like I think we're seeing a lot more families say this is the type of school that I've been looking for. Like for their
mm,
lifestyle, they know that. Like we still meet kids and still meet families who say, "My child did so well during COVID,
yeah,
and we've tried to go back to school,
yeah,
but it's just not working out, either socially or academically or lifestyle wise, the distance or rural or whatever. It's not working out for a variety of reasons." And they're like, we've actually been looking for a school like this, where there are, government programs like VSV and, the hands online and these types of things. But I think when it comes to like a private, really high level of engagement and really high level of support, at the moment, CGA kind of stands alone in that field in Australia. So it's exciting for families to come along and see what we do, and then they enroll, kind of testing the waters
yeah.
for a single, maybe one subject for a year or so, see how it goes, and then the next year they say, "Yep, we're going to go full time." And that's very common experience that we see at CGA, where families test the waters first for a single subject, and then go on to basically graduate from CGA as a full time
Perfect.
student.
And from the homeschool sense, perfectly acceptable because they just put in their plan that for mathematics, they're using the resources from CGA and write their
Yep.
plan for all the rest of their subjects.
Yep, exactly, exactly. Like, look, we've never had a student knock back from a homeschool application. We have had some like I guess frustration sometimes for us as a school is that the APs vary so much
Yeah.
in their interpretations of some APs are like, yep, 100%, you're good to go. And some APs have quite a lot of questions around how does this match up with this and this match up with that. And it really depends on who's reviewing the application. And I've worked with some families who are like, their AP is very detail oriented, let's say, which is good for, it's fine. Like we've got teachers and academic staff that can list everything out if needs be, and we're happy to show all the working type of thing. But yeah, we've never had a student knock back from their homeschool application. And the main thing to know is just like from a student joining CGA, they just need to know what their local homeschool requirements are,
Yeah.
and it changes state by state. I usually say, and Kylie, you might have an order in your head as to which state is hardest, which state is easiest to apply for. I'd say New South Wales is a tough one, which is why we're going through the homeschool, like the school registration process in New South Wales.
Yeah.
Queensland we find fairly easy. Victoria used to be easy, but now changed that. So that's the part-time stuff is fine though. ACT super easy.
Yeah.
ACT like loves homeschooling, really easy to apply there. South Australia is like okay. WA is a bit old school, but still we can get students to meet their homeschool requirements there. But yeah, it's interesting from my perspective, like getting my head around all the
Yes.
different state legislations and everything else.
Yeah.
And I do find it's like I love what you do because it's such a such a scary space to enter into for a lot of families, becoming a first-time homeschooler and like basically applying to the government, and you feel like if I do this wrong, my child's going to be disadvantaged or
Yeah.
whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it is nice to have your resource finder there and to have an option like us as well to kind of make hopefully this whole process a bit easier,
Yeah.
and keep that really high level of education going. So yeah, it's good to know that the homeschooling process, even if the government maintains their, it might not be as clear and as easy to apply as some would like. At least there's resources and
Yes. Yeah.
organizations and all these things that are there to support families to go through it.
Yeah. And what I like is that it's great for Australian families to finally now have another alternative with
Yeah,
because we haven't had that before.
yeah, exactly. And yes, like I want to address our fees as well. Yes, our fees are high. We're kind of mid-tier to high-tier private school fees.
Mhm.
You're looking at around 28,000 for full time for a year, or around 4,850 for a single subject, for like a group class
Yep.
for primary years, and then a little bit higher for the senior years. But that's reflective of our teacher quality. It's a reflective of the work that we do behind the scenes with building, CGA home and these timetable planners and everything else that we do. Um, but we are going to be most likely for a lot of families a stretch budget wise, and a niche offering. But I think as even a single subject, there is all those additional things that come with it, all the extracurricular clubs, the community, and these types of things. So from that perspective, it can be really, really helpful. From that structure side of things, it can be really, really helpful. And then down the track, if you want to pick up a second subject, we do have financial aid and scholarships and these types of things available for families as well. So ideally, CGA was built to make very high quality teachers and a very high quality curriculum accessible to students everywhere. So as long as you've got an internet connection, and then if your child's at like a really high level in a particular thing and you want to apply for a scholarship or financial aid, then by all means, like let's go through that process and give your
Yep.
child that opportunity.
Perfect. Has there been anything that I haven't asked or that we haven't covered that you feel that we should?
Well, I think if families want to enroll or want to inquire further, the best thing to do is just to reach out to cga.school, our website, or I don't know if they could DM me through Facebook, which I run like the Sydney School Discussion Group. I'm very available online through Facebook, and have had some families enroll or contact me through there and end up enrolling.
Yep.
But yeah, ideally, inquire through cga.school, book a consultation with someone like myself, an admissions officer, or my colleagues Tarina or Karen, who are also in the admissions team.
Mhm.
And then basically we start a customized plan. So we have an assessment sent to your child in majority of cases, trying to pick their best fit level. And then we can do late enrollments any time of year, really in our group classes, and our one-to-one classes can start anytime. They don't go by school holidays, super, super flexible. So that's an option as well. So yeah, if you're interested in enrolling, interested in kind of learning more, book that chat. It's free to do, and there's an opportunity to just learn more about what we do at CGA and how we can help.
Yeah. I'll be sure to put links in the comments and everything below. Quick question that popped into my head. Terms and things, being an international school, how does that all work with all the different countries and school year?
Yeah. So our southern hemisphere, we have effectively four campuses.
Right.
So when you're looking at Australia and New Zealand students, we are basically on our southern hemisphere calendar, which is aligned actually to our New Zealand school because we're a New Zealand registered school. The New Zealand term calendar is almost identical to the Australian term calendar. We just take New Zealand public holidays. So
Okay.
Australian students can also celebrate Waitangi Day and bank holidays and everything in New Zealand, right? So that's yeah. So we do four terms. Our exams are at the end of the year for the majority of senior students. So basically the same as a standard Australian school term. And then if the student was or a family were to move and say they start off in Australia and then move to the Northern Hemisphere, they can join our Northern Hemisphere school that runs September through to May, June. And so we have a US campus for our September, May, June kids, or we have a European campus as well, teaching the two different curriculums. Then our fourth one is our one-to-one campus. And as I said, that has no term dates. You can basically choose when you want your classes to happen. You just liaise directly with the teacher there, and that's the most flexible format we have. And
Wow.
that typically is very useful for kids who like to accelerate and learn at their own pace, for the traveling families, for kids who have medical conditions and might need to be in and out of hospitals, these types of things.
Yep.
And then kids who are, your pre-professional athletes and these type of things as well.
Perfect. Sounds like you covered all bases. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. The Da Vinci, the one-to-one really came in, and that enabled us to cover a lot of bases and really give families that ultimate flexibility, whilst having that mentor on the other side that they can keep, referring to. I think like families realize that, a live teacher on the other end is such a big plus, such a big difference compared to asynchronous or recorded versions of schools.
Yes.
So yeah, I would encourage families if they're new to the homeschooling journey, or even if they've been a homeschooler for quite some time and are like looking to change things up, or want to help their child to have a classroom experience but not in a physical school. So yeah, let us know, and we can make that happen. We also have trial classes and things like that as well. So if
Oh,
a family wants
perfect.
to come along and see what a class is all about, we do trial classes relatively frequently,
Yeah,
and we can book them in for the next one.
that's great. Excellent. All right, well, well done.
Thanks, Kylie.
Yeah,
No, it's great to be
thank you
here.
for coming on and sharing. I appreciate that. To get to know CGA a little bit deeper, that was great. Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure, my pleasure. And yeah, look forward to hearing from your homeschool resource finder members.
Yep, perfect.
Great.
Excellent.